to somebody you thought was a friend. He was the president at the time. I mean, it's interesting that the pattern of behavior continues, because when he assaulted Juanita, he was the attorney general. When he did this with Paula, he was the governor. Now he's the president of the United States. He knew you, correct?
Yes.
And you had financial troubles. You needed a job.
Yes. My husband had told me 2 weeks prior to that meeting about some serious financial trouble that he had gotten himself into. And, you know, we were in serious financial trouble. We had one in college and one on her way to medical school, and a nice life. He told me what was going on, and, I mean, he faced possible jail time. It was that serious. And, he made a bad mistake. You know, I just said, well, I'm going to go to the president and ask him and tell him that I need a job. And I had absolutely no trouble whatsoever in doing it. And I was criticized horribly by all of the feminists, believe it or not, after that. But who does she think she is? Well, because he was our friend, because we had started Virginians for Clinton, we had raised a lot of money for him, we had given him an office in my husband's suite of law offices. We had seen him on numerous occasions at different fundraisers all over the state and in other states. We saw him at the inaugural. I had a part in the inaugural. We were friends. And so when I went to see him, I asked to see him. I got a few minutes. He could see that I was upset. I was more upset by the fact that I had not been able to contact him all day long. His office didn't know where he was. His assistant didn't know where he was. I had called him 15 times. I didn't know where he was. I was upset about that. And when I got into the Oval Office, I was crying. I was that upset. And
let me just backtrack 1 second, Kathleen.
What was going on?
So you were able to get him because he knew you. You worked to get him elected. You were on his campaign team.
Yes.
I mean, not everybody gets in the Oval Office, so he knew you well enough to
and I was
schedule.
also a volunteer at the time
right.
in the social office, so I was there at the time.
Right, so you were able to have access that very few people would have. He knew you by name. You were a friend of his. He gave you the meeting. And then, so you go in and you tell him that you have all these troubles, and then what happened?
Well, the same kind of thing with Paula and with Juanita. He said, well, let's go back. Would you like a cup of coffee? And I said, yes. And he said, well, let's go back here to my little kitchenette where we could have some privacy. And I thought, well, that's okay. I mean, I didn't think anything of it. So there was a steward in there, and I noticed that he kind of ushered him out of the Oval Office, out of the whole area. And I really didn't pay attention to it until afterwards. But anyway, he said, poured me a cup of coffee. And he said, let's go sit in my study here where we can talk. Well, that was the study, as I found out later, where he and Monica used to meet. And so I knew I had a very short window of time. And he sat down in a chair, and I never did. I just leaned up against the door jamb. And I told him what was going on, and I just said, we're in deep financial trouble. My husband could go to jail. He's embarrassed. He's ashamed of himself. He's done a bad thing. I've got to help him. I need a job. And if there's anything that you can do to help me, I would be most appreciative. And I just said, it doesn't have to be here. It doesn't have to be in the White House. If it could be in Richmond, a federal job in Richmond, that would really be a big help. But I need a job, and I'm asking you for help. There was a little bit more small talk. I think he was asking me a few more details. And I was in a hurry to get out of there because I knew they had fit me in. And that I knew that he had a meeting after that. That's all I knew. And so I thanked him for his time. And I said, and I hope that you will consider helping me. At this point, you're my best option. So as I turned to leave to head out towards the door back into the Oval Office, the next thing I knew, he had me back into a corner, all over me, whispering in my ear. I didn't know what to do. It was just like Paula and Juanita's. You don't know what to do. And I'm thinking to myself, what in the world is he doing? That's all I could think of was, what is he doing?
And he started, look, let me help you out, because it's very uncomfortable to ask you all to tell this story again, although I know there's new audience here. But you're talking about he assaulted you. He did what?
Yeah. His hands up my skirt. He put my hand on his crotch. I mean, you know, he had his hands on my breast. I mean, his hands were all over me. And, you know, whispering in my ear that I've been wanting to do this since the first time I met you. I saw you, and I'm, you know, my mind is racing, and I'm thinking. And I remember saying to him, aren't you afraid somebody's going to walk in here like Hillary or anybody? And he said, no, I know where everybody is all the time. At that point, his aide, Andrew Friendly, started banging on the door, saying, Mr. President, you have a meeting. There are people waiting for you. And he totally ignored it. But I thought to myself, here's my out. And he totally ignored it, and he really had me overpowered. He's a big man, and I'm not. I'm short. I mean, I'm little, and now I'm 5'3" on a good day. It's just that this sounds ridiculous.
How long did this go? How long did this go on for?
You know, it seemed like forever, but you know, I guess maybe 3 or 4 minutes, maybe that long. You know, just at least 3 or 4 minutes, maybe 5.
So, you know, listening to you and listening to Juanita, remember, for Juanita, it's when he's Attorney General. For Paula, it's when he's the governor of Arkansas. In your case, it's when he's President of the United States. And by the way, and then on top of that, then we have consensual incidences where he had a long-term affair with Jennifer Flowers and other women,
right.
and then the whole Monica Lewinsky thing comes up. And so you're talking about a serial predator. I mean,
yes.
that's what the three of you are describing, and not somebody that's changed over time.
Right.
Yeah. Let me ask I guess the next most important thing, so you finally get out of there, then your life changed forever because you lost your husband that day. He committed
that day he took his own life.
He committed suicide that day, and now your life is now you don't know what to think or do. Did you ever hear from him again after that?
Yes.
When?
He called me when he found out the next day. When I went to see him, it was on the Monday after Thanksgiving. I spent that entire night after I got home back to Richmond, because I was commuting between Richmond and Washington on the train. I spent half of the night looking for him anywhere. Anywhere.
And you didn't know that he had committed suicide till the next day.
No.
And then Clinton called you after he found out.
Nobody had heard from him, and I was calling his friends. I was checking, bars. I was, anywhere that he could have been, and I couldn't find him. I forgot. I was in such a state that I stopped at a quote unquote friend's house in just a panic, because she lived near me, to tell her that I couldn't find him and what was going on. And I told her just very quickly, and I said, and on top of all that, you'll never guess what happened to me in the Oval Office. I mean, it's unbelievable.
How many people did you tell at the time?
I told her that night. I told Linda Tripp after it happened, because I was working with, I went to see her to tell her. And then I told another woman who I worked with in the social office, who's no longer alive, and I told another woman later on.
And all these women are on the record as saying you told them at the time too, just like Juanita, right?
Yes, but one of them, the one that had been my friend for 20 years, was brought out by the Clintons and tried to turn me into a complete liar. And I mean, this woman didn't know anything about Washington or how it worked, and all of a sudden she showed up with the most powerful attorneys in Washington, signing all kinds of affidavits about my going and telling her what had happened, and this is what is so ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm running out of time here, so
right.
I want to make sure. And Juanita, this is for you too. Both of you experienced intimidation, and Kathleen, you were intimidated, correct?
My children's lives were threatened, Sean.
People came up to you. Tell that story.
2 days before my deposition in Paula's case, I was out jogging early one morning. I live in a very rural area. It's hard to find me. I was new here. I hadn't met all my neighbors. I'd had a lot of strange things happen to me. Pets disappeared, pets killed, cars vandalized, you name it. All kinds of strange phone calls. And a man approached me who looked like a jogger. And he stopped me and he asked me if I had ever found my cat. First really serious thing that happened was that one of my cats just disappeared into thin air. And
wow.
I put signs up, his name, everything, and my phone number. And he said, "Did you ever find Bullseye?" And I said, No, I didn't, and I'm still looking for him.
Juanita, what happened? Juanita, what happened to you in terms of intimidation? Because every woman that has spoken out, even the women that just had affairs, their names were smeared and slandered and besmirched. And this even happened to you last week with Andrea Mitchell.
Oh, isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
I was just shocked when she came out with that announcement on the television. I have not had what Kathleen has. I've never had experienced someone coming and actually threaten me. I know I've been followed back before the Dateline interview by numerous people who would just follow me around town. But as far as being threatened, other than when I talked with Hillary, no, I have not been.
And by the way, when Andrea Mitchell says that your story was discredited, and it was her colleague Lisa Myers, when NBC was not going to air your interview at one point, and there were, free Lisa Myers, free Juanita Broderick buttons popping up, and they got pressured into doing it, she called you and said, the problem is you're too credible.
Yeah, no, Lisa called me and said, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is you're credible. The bad news is you're too credible.
In other words, that they watch the tape and they're like, oh my gosh, this woman's telling the truth.
Yeah, that's why they held it till after the impeachment. I'm positive.
Yeah. I think you had an exclusive with them and you had granted it, but I got to run. Thank you both for being with us. We really appreciate it. I know we'll talk again. Juanita Broderick, Kathleen Willey, and I know I speak for a lot of people. We're all sorry that you have gone through everything you've gone through. We're going to check in with Paula Jones. We hope she's okay and that it was nothing serious. Thank you all for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, 800.